What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Today on the show, we're going to talk about a lot of different things. Wednesday's practice was opened up, so we'll get to that. We'll talk about why I think this defense is going to be better as well. All that and more on Hog Sports Live. I had to redo the intro for people that watch it later because I forgot to record. So that's why you got the double. We're going to get to your questions too. I'm going to try to take some questions also from the Razor's Edge Premium Forum because we have had problems with Facebook. So we're going to let our VIP subscribers get in questions first today on the Razor's Edge. Before we get started, of course, I want to remind you there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. You can always tune in on Facebook Live where we stream the show live. Also available on YouTube. Be sure to throw us a thumbs up on both of those channels if you like the content. Also follow the page on Facebook. We're almost at the goal of 80,000 before football starts. So we want 80,000 followers. So share the content with other people if you think they might like it. Interact with the video. Throw us a smiley face or whatever. All that stuff helps our channel. On YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications bell so you're notified anytime we upload a new video. Also available on Apple Podcasts. We'd love to have a 5-star review from you there and to add a comment or two about what you like about the show. That would be great. Also available on Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you can think of to find your favorite podcast. Right now, Hog Sports is 50% off the annual rate. So that breaks down to 15 cents a day. I'd love you to show me something that you can get for 15 cents. 15 cents a day, $1.03 a week. That's the equivalent. Just go to HawgSports.com. There's no promo code, none of that stuff. I hope a lot of you took advantage of our free day that we had the other day. I think if you asked our subscribers if they're pleased with the service, they're going to tell you yes. In spite of everything that we've been faced with coronavirus and the limited access and all that stuff, we still are your number one insider source for Razorback football, recruiting, basketball, everything. And have been for a long time. So come check us out if you haven't done so already. If you've been away from us, you've been worried about coronavirus, football is back in full swing. So that's a good thing. All right, let me clear some of this stuff out. Some of you guys don't like that. One guy told me it looks like a NASCAR ad. All right, a NASCAR car, whatever. So football practice was open yesterday. We haven't first let's talk about this full schedule, okay? Because you knew that Arkansas was going to get screwed. After they got Georgia and Florida, you knew they weren't going to take it easy on them. So they give them Georgia for the opening game. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe Georgia comes out a little rusty. They got to travel on the road. I'm not saying Arkansas is going to beat University of Georgia, who's ranked number 4 in the country. I guess they moved up to number 3, technically, if Ohio State's not ranked anymore. We'll see what happens with all that. But week 1, Georgia in Fayetteville. Week 2 at Mississippi State. That's one that I think a lot of us should be eyeing to stop the streak. That's a possibility. It's at Mississippi State, so it is a road game. It's always going to be tough, but it's not going to be the same. There's not going to be as many cowbells in the stands. Arkansas, in fact, going to 21 to 23% capacity, so 16,000 to 17,000 fans. Season ticket holders are hit with all kinds of options. You know, would you like the 5 games, the 5 home games? Would you like the Alabama game and the Georgia game as a package, or the 3 games, which are LSU, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, which to me that's a no-brainer. If you have to pick between the two, do you pick the first game and the last game, or do you pick the 3 middle games? I mean, it's one more game, 3 really good opponents to watch. I mean, to me it's a no-brainer. I tried to get to every game if I could, but it's just not going to happen. There's 33,000 season ticket holders. They're only going to let 17,000 into the game. So Mississippi State's second game, then week 3 at Auburn. That's another. There's a lot of interesting storylines here. I mean, obviously playing, Mike Leach, that's interesting. Opening with Georgia, Sam Pittman's former team. Auburn, Chad Morris, offensive coordinator there. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin almost became the Arkansas coach. That's week 4. So that's what you open up with. And then week 6, Texas A&M in College Station at Kyle Field. I'm hoping to go to that game. It is Halloween, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know if we have. Are we going to have Halloween? Are kids going to be able to go door-to-door trick-or-treating? I mean, everybody needs to be a mass superhero, I guess, for that to work. But I don't know if that's practical in 2020 to go trick-or-treating. So if it's not, then I'm going to go to this game. I haven't seen the new Kyle Field. I've seen every stadium in the SEC I've seen, except for the renovated Kyle Field. Week 7 versus Tennessee. There's a game that Arkansas can win. I really believe that. I think they can beat Tennessee. I think if you look at the Tennessee's last 6 games, there's not a single juggernaut, not a really good opponent out of all of them. Maybe Kentucky would be the best one. But when they went on that streak to finish 8-5, it wasn't like they were facing Alabama and LSU. Week 8 at Florida, obviously intriguing because Felipe Franks is going home, face his former team. Week 9 versus LSU, man, they're dealing with some stuff right now with the Darius Geis allegations. We'll see where things go with there, but that does not look good. Week 10 at Missouri, another intriguing one. I mean, there's so many interesting storylines in this because, I mean, this is Barry Odom's game right here, his former team. It's another one Arkansas has a chance to win. Then Week 11 versus Alabama. Obviously, it's weird not having Alabama Auburn at the end of the year, but they kept it on the same date. All right, Arkansas's defense is going to be better in 2020. So a couple years ago, I stopped saying this, right? I stopped saying it because Arkansas continually got worse. Every year since 2014, since they had that defense that was like 10th in, I think it may be 9th in total defense in the country and 11th in points per game allowed. Ever since that defense, they have gone down almost every year. I mean, they had, like, literally, like, there's one hiccup on both of those categories where it was just like it went the other barely. But really, they've gone downhill every year. Even last year, they went down. I mean, they were 14th in points allowed, 14th in yards given up. They were the worst defense. They gave up more points than anybody in at least 10 years in the SEC last year. And probably longer. I just got tired of looking for a worse defense. I got tired of looking for a worse defense in Arkansas, so I only can go back 10 years in the archives. But I do think that they're going to be better on defense next year. And a lot of the reasons are because I think that they're better from a talent perspective than people are actually giving them credit for. I think so much of this, I've said this before, but the saying is, it's not about the X's and the O's, it's about the Jimmies and the Joes. What it should be is it's about the X's and the O's and the Jimmies and the Joes. It's about building a sense of camaraderie, togetherness, leadership. So often you'd see guys just like, oh, he's got it. Pull up. They're running to make a tackle. Oh, he's got it. I mean, and it's not all on the players because you need to be motivated. You have to be inspired in really everything in life. Most people need something to rally around. I think they finally got that with Sam Pittman and Barry Odom on defense, just by the way they talk about him. Now, doing this as long as I've been doing it, you learn to read between the lines because these players are taught by the University of Arkansas to never talk about themselves, never talk about specific players. So you get this generic garbage answer that is, so you ask a very specific question about somebody and the response is going to be, everybody's doing good. And I think they think that they're helping them, but really they're just, I'm not using that quote. I'm not using that quote. If I ask you about a specific player and you tell me everybody's doing good, I'm done asking questions. So, but you can read between the lines on this stuff. When you ask players how they feel about somebody and they give you the answer, obviously they're going to give you a positive response. Oh, he's doing great. He's working hard. We're together in this. But you can tell. And you could tell, here's a good example from Monteric Brown, if I can find the quote. You guys want to get some more of that video up? For you guys who missed it, I'm going to post the video real quick from yesterday's practice. Oops. Where you at? Well, it's somewhere. There it is. All right, so this is what Monteric said. I love Coach Odom. Man, Coach Odom gives me so many opportunities just to make plays. I love Coach Odom. His scheme is just perfect. He's going to help us. He's a great coach. He knows what he's doing, and his background tells it all. So that's the kind of responses you get from players when they talk about Sam Pittman, Barry Odom. But it's It's not that different in a lot of ways how they would talk about the last staff if you just read the quotes, but you had to see their eyes light up. You had to see their change in their seats, move around. You can tell that they really love these guys, and it's going to show up in how they play. It's obvious to me that they did not give a flip about Chad Morris or John Chavis. They totally quit on them. When they had to have them, when those coaches had to have them to avoid getting fired, I mean, they gave up 35 points to Western Kentucky in the first half. You didn't see that with other coaches. I don't want to repeat myself, but, I mean, you didn't see them giving up on Houston Nutt. Even Brett Bielema at the end, they didn't give up on him. They almost beat Mississippi State and Missouri in those games. But they gave up on Chad Morris and John Chavis. There's no question that they did. So I go back to this Auburn game in 2018. Arkansas lost 34-3, but it was not because of the defense. 34-3, and it wasn't because of the defense. They gave up 225 yards on that one. And I've broken down every single drive. Auburn had one touchdown drive against Arkansas in that game, the whole game. So how do you go from that, a team that shows some fight on the road in the SEC? I was watching from that terrible excuse for a press box in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Awful. So how do you go from that to fast forward the next year and you lose, 51-10? Is that what it was? Something awful. 51-10. Give up 491 yards in your own backyard. You give up 54 points and 640 yards to Mississippi State, which wasn't even good last year. Ended up firing their coach. San Jose State, Western Kentucky. I mean, just pathetic efforts on defense, and it's because of a lack of inspiration, a lack of fire. You have to play frenetically. You got to play crazy. Controlled chaos, to be cliche, is how you have to play. And they have better players, I think. I think when you look in the secondary, I really think Monteric Brown has potential to play on the next level. People may be surprised to hear me say that. I think he's a really strong tackler. I think he's got good speed, instincts. I think he started the season really well. He just faded towards the end like most people. Jalen Catalon is expected to miss some time. He should be back, though, by the end of camp, towards maybe the last couple of weeks or so of camp, just depending on how his rehab goes. But he did suffer a minor injury. But still, he's a guy with a lot of promise. And that's one thing that you have to give Chad Morris credit for, bringing in guys like Jalen Catalon, Devin Bush, even though he did try to transfer out after 4 games, Greg Brooks Jr., some of those guys, or, Joe Fouché too, who played all last year with a shoulder injury. Those are guys I think that, being a year older, having a new coach, having Barry Odom back there and Sam Carter, I think is going to make a big difference with those guys. The defensive line, kind of the same reason. Guys like Zach Williams, Matteo Soli, a little bit older, a year older. That first year is so big for those guys. Adding Xavier Kelly and adding Julius Coates, getting Dorian Gerald back. Jonathan Marshall returns. I just think, and there's some young guys like Marcus Miller who I'm really high on. I just think that they have a really good chance to be a lot better. And by saying all this, guys, you got to remember, I'm not talking about Arkansas just like shocking the world. I'm talking about them getting some SEC wins. Finally, and I think they have a good enough team to do that. And I feel like the buy-in is there, and I don't feel like it was in the past under Chad Morris. I feel like he lost him from the first press conference. So the one concern for me on defense when I'm talking about getting back to getting wins is linebacker. I think you have to have Bumper Pool really play at an all-SEC type of level. You need Levi Draper to be the guy that was the number 5 inside linebacker recruit in the country in 2017. You need him to be that guy. You need Xavier Kelly, not Xavier Kelly, but you need Andrew Parker to step up. He chose Arkansas over Texas in high school. You need Grant Morgan to continue to be Grant Morgan. He gets everything he can out of 5'11", 220. Gets everything he can out of it. But continue to be that. I'm not asking for them to be the best unit on defense. They're not going to be at linebacker, but they can be okay. Hayden Henry's another guy. Need him to stay healthy. Hayden Henry has really struggled staying healthy over the years, but need him to stay healthy. So that's kind of my thoughts on the defense. I think they have a shot to be a lot better. And I know the offense does. I mean, flipping it to the other side, there's no reason this offensive line shouldn't be a lot better, really. Really a lot better. I think they have a chance to be a lot better. I think they should get better quarterback play. I know that they have the players at wide receiver, especially with those guys being a year older, and Knox and Burks to go along with Mike Woods, who had 3 touchdown catches yesterday, all from Felipe Franks. So Rakeem Boyd's back. Love what I see out of Traylon Smith so far. Also, TJ Hammond's working exclusively at wide receiver the last couple of days. So I don't know if that's a plan just to get him acclimated there and then move him back to running back or what, but he's been working at wide receiver, which I think makes sense. They need somebody else. They need somebody else in the slot. And you talk to the coaches, he's like, our top 3 guys are really, really, really special, but, after that, we've got some work to do. So it makes sense to do that, to move them over there. But I think they've got some, and also, Hudson Henry is going to be a really good player at Arkansas. He just hasn't been yet. He suffered that concussion early in camp last year, put him behind. They had 3 senior tight ends, but he's a guy that's going to help him also. So it's not just those 3 wide receivers in the passing game. They also got Hud back there too. So the NCAA Division I Council has proposed that the NCAA shouldn't dock a year of eligibility for fall sports, no matter if you play a game or not. If you play 10 games or not, I should say. I don't know if I agree with that. I think you're running into a bit of a cluster by doing this. I don't know that it's fair to upcoming high school recruits and stuff, because your roster, you can only have 85 on scholarship at a time. So, literally everybody could come back. What does that do to the 2021 recruiting class? Everybody can come back. I don't know about that. There's 3,000 kids that are worthy in most years of being, FBS level college athletes. So what happens to them? Somebody's getting screwed in this deal. Life's not fair. Quit trying to make it fair for everybody. You just end up, it's like the person that stops in front of you to let the person into traffic and ends up just kind of screwing everybody behind him. He just sees what's ahead of him and helps that person. You're a bad driver. So, offensive line, I got a few news and notes from practice observations yesterday. From what I can gather, it's difficult because they didn't just go out and line up, right? They didn't just say, okay, let's get all 11 out there. But from what we could tell by how they were going through drills in groups and stuff, it looked like Myron Cunningham, Shane Clennon, this is left to right. So left tackle Myron Cunningham, Shane Clennon, Ricky Stromberg at center, Bo Limmer, and Dalton Wagner. Those of you who are subscribed at HawgSports.com, you would have seen a while back where I had this same offensive line, except we had Brady Latham working at right tackle as a starting right tackle. Latham is yesterday was working at second team left tackle. That's a guy that's going to surprise a lot of people. Now, maybe not this year. He's a guy that needs to continue to get stronger, but he's a guy that wasn't really highly recruited, but that happens on the offensive line. Needed to get stronger, but he's a guy that may have a future at Arkansas. So Brady Latham at left tackle, Luke Jones at left guard, Ty Clary at center, Ryan Winkle at right guard, another guy that I like, and right tackle Noah Gatlin. That was the second unit. The third unit, left tackle Dylan Rathke, left guard Marcus Henderson, center Austin Nix, right guard Jalen St. John, right tackle Ray Curry Jr. So they've got all those guys, kind of mixed in there on the third team, those freshmen. So that's kind of what we saw there. I thought Rakeem Boyd looked great. He's down to 206 from 215. He says he has a six-pack. But I feel like he looks bigger. And it could just be, you lose a little weight, you're a little more shredded. But he says he's never had a six-pack before. And he's there. Or four-pack maybe, I think he said. Traylon Smith, Josh Oglesby, both look really quick. So Josh Oglesby is come over from the track team as a walk-on. He's a smaller guy, 174 pounds, like 5'8", 174 pounds. But he's a 10.44 100-meter dash guy. He is an All-American for the 4x100 meter relay. So he's got some speed. And he looked really quick out there. So did Traylon Smith. I mentioned Mike Woods caught 3 touchdown passes. Peyton Owsley also caught one. TJ Hammond's caught one, and Traylon Burks all caught one also. So freshman Kari Johnson and Greg Brooks Jr. are both working at nickel. I know we had a lot of questions about that. We also had a lot of questions what kind of defense Arkansas is running. It's just going to be multiple. You're going to see everything from a bear front to a 3-2-6. Guys who weren't there: Jalen Catalon, Jarquez McClellan, Chibozie Nwana, Trey Knox, and Tyson Morris. Those were all the players that weren't spotted. Isaiah Joe, we talked about this towards the end of the last show because it happened as I was wrapping up the show, but Isaiah Joe is not returning. It's kind of an interesting deal. I mean, they had the August 3rd deadline for college to announce you're returning for college, but the NBA had August 17th deadline to withdraw. So you could have, like he did, withdraw from the NBA draft and then decide late and still retain your eligibility. But when you decide you're going to the NBA, it doesn't matter because you're not going back to college. So their deadline doesn't matter. So the deadline was always really the 17th. That was always really the deadline. But, I mean, I can't really blame Joe. I wish it hadn't happened the way it did. You know, I think it kind of, you know, somebody gives you something nice and then takes it from you. But I think that it's just unfortunate the way it happened. But I get it. I understand. I mean, there's concern that there may not even be a season. You know, it could get shut down. Football could be a total disaster. I don't think it will be. I think people are going to get coronavirus continuing forward. People act like you can just stop this thing by shutting down, and you can't. The only thing that's going to really slow it down is practicing social distancing, wearing a mask, washing your hands, not locking yourself away. That's not good for anybody long term. I mean, we're even seeing New Zealand was coronavirus free. There's the example everybody should see. But they have cases now out of nowhere. I think they've got 64 cases. It's not a lot, but I'm just saying you can't stop it. Just because you think you stopped it, it'll come back. So I don't know what'll change from now until we get a vaccine. Even then, that won't be completely stopped. Not everybody, first place, is going to get a vaccine. But these guys are young and healthy. They should be allowed to play if they want to. And if they want to opt out, then they should be allowed to do that and retain their scholarship and not be shamed for it. There's plenty of reasons to opt out. Plenty of reasons, and I get it. But if you're not worried about it, even if you are worried about it and you want to play, you should be able to play. The Big Ten, the Pac-12, in my opinion, have made a mistake here. I don't know how they're going to survive financially. And the thing is, this is going to pop up and there's going to be outbreaks and people are going to be like, told you so. There's going to be outbreaks. Some teams are going to get hit hard here and there. Someone may even pass away, and that would be awful. But it's going to be such a minute number. And I'm not saying that one life is fine. I'm not saying that, but you have to look at it I don't even want to say the greater good. It's hard to talk about death and act like it's okay because it isn't. But people die. And people will die because of this. People will die because of driving. People will die because of smoking. 8 million people are dying because of smoking. 1.2 million a year die of secondhand smoke. 1.2 million. Nobody's saying go out and get a mask, everybody. People are smoking. I don't even mean to compare it, but I'm just saying people die every day for no reason at all, and it's awful. And people will die because of this. There will be a death in football because of this. Probably. But these guys are healthy, and the chances are so dramatically low. I had a buddy who was strong as an ox who had H1N1. I mean, he was in coma for 2 months. We thought he was going to die. I'd already made peace that he was going to die. So it can affect people. But there's other things that can too. I just think they're going to regret at the end of the day that they did not open up and play football. I didn't even mean to go on a rant, but I did. All right. So I'm jumping into questions from our folks on the Razor's Edge Premium Forum where we're streaming live also there at HawgSports.com. Again, before we get to these, I want to remind you, of course, you can sign up right now at HawgSports.com for 50% off. It's 15 cents a day, $1.03 a week. It's like $4.43 a month. It's a great deal. It's a great deal. We put out so much content lately. It's ridiculous. Our Razor's Edge Premium Forum, where I'm about to take these questions, is just a tremendous community, like-minded Razorback fans. We don't always agree, but it's a great place to come and talk Razorback athletics. It is one of the strongest communities in the country. The Razor's Edge Premium Forum is one of the strongest communities in the entire country. In the month of December, in fact, it was the number one trafficked message board in the 24/7 Sports Network. Number one. Not number two, not top 10, number one. And there's a reason that HawgSports.com is one of the 10 largest subscriber sites in the entire network also. I mean, that doesn't just happen. Let me tell you something. They did not think that what we have done at Arkansas is possible, okay? With the number of subscribers, the traffic that we get, they didn't think it was possible. Arkansas, if they can get into the top 25, that's good enough. No, I mean, we're not just top 10, but we're firmly in the top 10. Firmly in the top 10. And it's because of the work that Danny does, that Curtis do, that I like to think that I do, managing the site, our members. And to me, it just shows what Arkansas is capable of. It's one of the reasons that a guy like Frank Broyles years ago saw a huge opportunity at Arkansas. You have the whole state behind you. People can talk about stuff like Mississippi State's a better job, Ole Miss is a better job because they have more talent. One team after another is going in that state and just picking talent out of there. Arkansas's got better facilities. They've got better fans. They got better support. It's top to bottom a better job. That bothers me when I see stuff like Missouri, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, better jobs in Arkansas. It's not true. Arkansas has one problem that they're overestimating, and they're not an hour away from recruiting talent. But those Mississippi schools get plucked of their top talent all the time. I mean, most of the time, Arkansas will out-recruit those schools. Not always. Not always. Definitely didn't during Hugh Freeze's time. I was just doing that. I was scratching my. That wasn't a money gesture. I was just scratching my thumb. All right. Let's get to these questions. How did Felipe look? How did Traylon Smith look? I mentioned that. This is from Houston Nutburner. Traylon Smith, I thought, looked really quick. And I love what Rakeem Boyd says about him. Like, they're looking at each other dead tired, and Traylon's like, we got to go. You know what we got to do. I love what Jeff Traylor said about him, and that he only talks football. That's all he wants to talk about. That's important. Hunter7272 says, can we get a preseason walk and talk? Well, I'll do something like that. I thought about doing it yesterday, but there was just such a time crunch with practice, trying to get notes out to our message board. I had Drive Time Sports right after that, so I didn't. It just wasn't. The timing wasn't there. I've got to have a window to be able to do it. Brady Mitchell says, now with Catalon having his injury, do you see Odom leaving Slusher as a top guy as his fill-in, or moving Jerry Jacobs to be the number one guy for? So I'm not a big fan of true freshmen. I think Slusher has a ton of ability, though. I like what I see out of him. But let me tell you something. Jerry Jacobs is shredded. This dude's shoulders. I mean, you know, you always look at like Alabama players, and you're like, look at their shoulders, look at their biceps. That's how Jerry Jacobs looks. I mean, for a cornerback, I mean, he's like put together like, oh man, I'm spacing on his name, and I see his face so clearly. Arkansas defensive back, Chris Houston. Like, Chris Houston was bowed up, and that's kind of how Jerry Jacobs is. So I could see Jacobs sliding over to sliding over to safety if they deem that there's a need there, which I think there kind of is. I do think Catalon is going to be back. I don't want to specifically say his injury, but because they haven't reported what it is, but 4 to 6 weeks probably. So he should be back by camp, before camp is over. Skirt Hog says, what freshman surprised you the most in person yesterday? I really like the way Malik Hornsby throws the ball. He's got a live arm. We know he's got speed. Malik Hornsby, probably the fastest quarterback Arkansas has had since 2004. Matt Jones. So I'll say him. I like the way Dominic Johnson looked. For a 6'1", 240-pound back, I thought he moved pretty well. But it's hard to say, like saying offensive lineman or stuff. Again, they're just in helmet, shirt, and shorts. So it's hard to say somebody's like, wow, this guy's physical, But I like the way Malik threw the ball. And the coaches have been really pleased with him. Hawk Savage says, who looks the most improved physically from last year to now? A guy that made you think, wow, he put the work in the weight room. Well, Myron Cunningham looks like a different guy. He literally looks like someone else out there. He was always tall, 6'7", but he played about 285, 290 last year, and he's 320, 319, 320 right now, and he looks good. He looks really good. I thought Monteric Brown, Monteric's only added 3 pounds. He's always been kind of wiry guy, but I feel like he's filled out a little bit. Like his legs look a little bit bigger. I feel like Rakeem looks really good. Looks really good. Ricky Stromberg's another one. This time last year, Ricky Stromberg was 266 pounds, and he's 311 now. So those are a few guys. Said 1976 says, are we going to have to wait till the season starts to see the road uniforms? That's a great question because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense other than there's coronavirus, but if usually by June or July, mid-July at the latest, there's a uniform reveal. And we know that Arkansas is going to use, the Darren McFadden era home uniforms, and we assume they're going to have the Darren McFadden away uniforms this year. Last year they were a alternate uniform technically because it wasn't the year in the cycle where they get new uniforms. It's every 2 years. So I would assume would be a release of some sort, but I haven't seen anything. Whiskey Drunk says, it's our buddy Keith Grayson who comes on the show every once in a while. Can you go 5 minutes without talking about COVID? I will hang up and listen. So the last time I had you on, Keith, you opened the segment talking about coronavirus. And I watched the Who's Online numbers just slowly go down. So not just a me problem. We got 229 people on here right now. That's a good number. Glad to have you all joining us. I really appreciate you guys making this show so popular. It means a lot. Helps us get our message out there. Again, one of the reasons we do the show is to get the message out there about our service, HawgSports.com. Whiskey Drunk says, do you think Briles is going to implement some auction packages from the quarterbacks with a pitch? I think so. I think the quarterback run is going to be an important part of this offense. I do think they could bring in some packages for KJ and stuff, maybe even Malik. They can keep him under 4 games. Heck, if they pass this rule where you keep your eligibility, then they can play all those guys if they want, as much as they want, not have to worry about the 4-game rule. We'll see where that goes. But, yeah, I do expect to see some option work with Arkansas. Absolutely. I think it's going to help. Talking with Mike Woods, what he says, the biggest difference is, first of all, they go fast. Kendall Briles said they have 75% of the offense installed, by the way. Not 30%. They've had 2 practices and they've had meetings. And they got 75% of the offense installed. Not the 30% install offense of Chad Morris. But what he says is they go fast, faster. And we knew their splits would be really wide and spreading the wide receivers out, as far out as they can get them legally. And that's going to create a lot of one-on-one matchups. That's kind of the idea behind the offense. Move fast, create a lot of one-on-one offense, one-on-one matchups. You know where you're going with the ball before it's snapped because you got one-on-one. And that ought to reduce sacks. I think it'll help the offensive line a lot. But the thing you got to remember is they are going to run the ball. And ideally in Kendall Briles' offense, they're going to put up more rushing yards than passing yards. Ideally. Doesn't mean they will, but I think that's how he would prefer to have it. Hog Fan in KS16 says, which of the transfers on defense do you see making the largest impact this season? I hope, for Arkansas's sake, that it's Levi Draper. I think that's where they need help the most. And he was a very highly recruited guy. He played on a team that went 13-1 last year. You'd have to go back a few years to add up 13 wins for Arkansas. So keep that in mind when we're talking about, who he was playing behind at OU versus who he will be playing behind at Arkansas, if that. So to me, Levi Draper would be ideal. The guy was a monster recruit. I mean, number 5 inside linebacker recruit in the country, number 118 overall prospect in the country. So he's got the resume in that sense. He just hadn't played a lot for OU. So I would definitely say him. Next, I would probably say maybe A.J. Reed at kicker. It's important to have a good kicker. You know, even without Xavier Kelly, I think they're going to be okay on the defensive line. But obviously you'd like to have him, you know, step up. And I think they've got some talented players in the secondary. Now, if you ask me who I think is going to make the biggest impact among the transfers, if I'm not saying A.J. Reed because I think he'll start at kicker, I'm going to say Jerry Jacobs. I think he'll make the biggest I'm talking defense. So I don't need to include the kicker anyway. So I'll say Jerry Jacobs will make the biggest impact. Razorback 1965 says, is Odom's defense known more for high pressure or bend but don't break? Wonder if he's willing to take some risk to pressure the quarterback. We're definitely going to see them bring some pressure. I don't think there's any question that they will bring some pressure. I'd take a bend but don't break also. I'd be fine with a bend but don't break defense. I'd be fine with an undersized defense that is scrappy. When's the last time you heard a defense called scrappy at Arkansas? They've got more talent than people are giving them credit for, people. They have got more talent than people are giving them credit for. And I pointed to that game against Auburn where the defense played really well. The offense is just atrocious. I mean, it's just been atrocious under Chad Morris. The fact that he said we're going to be one of the more explosive offenses in all of college football and to produce what was produced is just – there's not a word. No word comes to mind. Frustration. I can feel it when I start talking about it. I can feel it kind of boiling. Just ridiculous. Unacceptable. Get out of here. All right. Let's see if we got any more questions. How long are we going here? Okay, let's see. Houston Nutburner says, how confident are you in Kendall Browse and Franks' ability to run his offense? Now, I don't know that Franks is like the ideal quarterback to run the offense. And by that, I mean he can run, and he's got a 70-yarder on his resume. He ran for like 364 yards as a sophomore. But I think that he can put the ball anywhere it needs to be. You take a lot of thinking out of the offense. You know, everybody talks about how simple it is. It's not that complicated an offense. And that's a truth a lot of times with a lot of these spread offenses versus a pro-style attack. It's funny to me because people always say stuff like Bielema's offense when they were more pro-style was simple, you know, and they think of a spread offense as being more complex. And it's the opposite. It's the opposite of that. The spread offense is designed to be simple. So quarterbacks a lot of times can jump right in, you know, even as freshmen into a spread offense and be effective. It might be more difficult in a pro style. Frank's is a guy that's got a lot of experience. He's like 400-something yards from being one of the top 10 returning passers in the country. And he only played 3 games last year, 2.5 games last year. So he's got a really strong arm. He's nice and tall. He's got some weapons. I mean, I think that he has a chance to do really well for Arkansas. Do well for Arkansas. Let's just say he's got a chance to do okay. He's got a chance to do okay for Arkansas. Take it. You take it. He's not going to be a disaster. I don't think he is. Arkansas has started 10 quarterbacks the last 3 seasons. 10. 5 last year. That's such garbage. It's so terrible. It is so terrible, y'all. Embarrassing. I mean, the whole thing's been an embarrassment, isn't it? All right, everybody. Where are we right now? Okay, I'm going to get to a couple of your questions on Facebook now. Don't want to leave you guys alone, but I have to go through my phone, which is annoying because I can't get the comments to come up for the third. How many shows is this in a row where I can't get the comments to come up? It's just blank. It's just blank. I have no idea what to do, so we'll just do it this way. Trey, this is from Joshua Shivers. Trey, I think Arkansas will go 3-7, possibly 4-6. Do you consider that a good first year, given everything Sam Pittman and staff are dealing with? If they win 4 games, then yeah, I think that would have to be considered pretty damn good, considering the slate that they have, because 6 of the teams are nationally ranked. 7 will be. Well, no, they're not playing Kentucky, but 6 are nationally ranked. So that's over half the schedule is nationally ranked. But yeah, I mean, even if they win 3, I mean, we're talking about only SEC games here. If they win 3 or 4 games, you have to be like, okay, that's a dramatic improvement. Because if they win 3 or 4 SEC games, you know that they probably have the ability and probably would have won 3 of the non-conference games. And that's bowl eligible. I'm like trying to move my mouse, trying to get my phone without it propped up on my computer. Like that would work. What else I hate about this is it just tells me, like, people when they're logging on and watching. Chase Hogan-Jones has been loving the confidence from these guys, ready to see if it translates to the field. So impressed at how fast we increased our size. I agree with you, Chase. I mean, I really think that they have a confidence level. Like, even maybe, I dare to say, a little swagger. I think that there is a level of belief that things are about to change in the players. And you can see it when they talk. I mean, you can just see it. You can see it in the attitude. I'll say this. The first practice I went out with Chad Morris, I looked around and I was just like, what is going on? It felt so chaotic. And you had Chad, he had this microphone, this headset with a microphone, and his voice was going over the loudspeaker. And he was like, 10 seconds before the next period, he was saying what was going to be up, and I mean, it didn't work. Like the loudspeaker wasn't working. People couldn't understand. And he eventually gave it up. He quit doing it. But it was just eventually I felt like I started to see what was going on. But it felt so. I just remember it felt so rushed and chaotic. And I didn't get the sense from practice yesterday. I didn't get that sense at all. I felt like it was very organized, structured, clean. Drew Bethard says, I hope these kids realize how quickly football can disappear this year if they do just normal college things. Yeah, I think they do, but it's still going to happen. You're not going to stop it. I mean, there's so many instances, like even it has to be about mitigation, and you do the best you can, but you're not going to stop it. Joshua Shiver says, Trey, in your opinion, who will have the biggest impact on the D-line this year? I think big things could be in store for Jonathan Marshall. Really do. I went back and watched a game the other day. I think it was a Kentucky game. And Derek LeBlanc on the other side. But I went back and watched that game because somebody had questioned me because I said Jonathan Marshall comes off the ball fast. So I went back and watched. And when he was in there, I mean, he's exploding off the ball. I felt like he should have started last year. Strongest guy on the team. I think he has a chance to have a really good year. So I will say him, Dorian Gerald, Julius Coates. Those are other strong candidates. Mateo Soli, Zach Williams. They're candidates. There are options. Eric Gregory is a guy that redshirted last year that probably would have played if he hadn't had a high ankle sprain and had surgery, which I didn't know you had surgery for high ankle sprains, but he did. Jordan Jones did as well. I don't think Jordan Jones ever got back to normal. Will Friday be full pads or pads with shorts, says Chase Hogan-Jones. So they'll be in shoulder pads on Friday. From what I understand, I believe that's what he said. And then second practice next week, they'll be able to go full gear. Christopher Strine says, Trey, I think they can go 5-5 or even 6-4, maybe 7-3. I don't know about that. I think you're getting your hopes up a little bit too high, Christopher, but I think they're going to win some games. I think they're going to win At least I think they'll win a couple of SEC games. I really do. Drew Bethard says, do the players sound different under Pittman versus Morris versus Brett Bielema? There's some similarities, I feel like, early on with Brett Bielema, like when Brett Bielema first came on. With Chad, I just never felt the level of excitement from the players. I feel like he lost them right out of the gate. I really do. First press conference, or first time he met him, I feel like he lost him. Matt Trosclair says, date of the first scrimmage. I'm guessing, let's see. So here's the schedule. They go tomorrow, and then next week will be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then a Friday practice. I'm guessing they're planning on doing some type of midweek scrimmage somewhere in there. Or later. Because the first Saturday practice isn't until September 12th. So the next week they go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday again. Then they go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So the 12th is a possibility and the 19th is a possibility. 26th is the Georgia game. 19th is actually, what that'll end up being is like a mock game type of situation. So the 12th is a good chance that'll be a scrimmage, like decide a lot of stuff on that one, right? And then who knows on the other one? Maybe that Friday, the 4th, September 4th is a possibility. Friday, September 28th maybe. But nothing's been ironed out. Like, this is when it is. And the schedule's subject to change too. I mean, it could absolutely change. Okay, everybody. Again, 50% off right now at HawgSports.com. That's a great deal. Or you can sign up for your first month and get it for $1. If you want to just like jump in and try it out, it's $1 for your first month right now at HawgSports.com. Promise you're going to like what you see. Plenty of ways to watch and listen. You can always tune in on Facebook Live. If you haven't thrown us a thumbs up or an angry face or whatever, throw us that. Interact in the video. Share the video with somebody else that you think might like it, who isn't aware of us. Also available, follow the page also. You got to follow the page on YouTube. We got to get up to 80,000. That's the goal. Also available on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications bell. Throw us a like if you like the content there. Interact with the video. We love to have that. All that stuff helps the algorithm that boosts our content up when people are searching for Arkansas Razorback content. So be sure to subscribe, hit the notifications bell so you're notified, and share the content. Also, Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and take a moment. If you're not, if you listen on Apple Podcasts other times but you're watching the show, pop over there real quick, throw us a 5-star review. Nothing helps more than a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And we love to have you make a comment also if you like the show, letting other people know what to expect. Again, that helps boost it as well. Also available on Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you can think of to find your favorite podcast. No practice availability tomorrow. So they will practice Friday, but there's no availability to the media. The next opportunity we have probably, I'm guessing, on Monday. So I want to thank all of you for joining us. I want to thank the Razor's Edge for your questions. Thank you guys on Facebook for your questions as well. And we'll be up on YouTube here shortly. All right, everybody. This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.